34-23, Colorado beats Cincinnati. And Brian, let's not bury the lead here. Colorado is bowl eligible with 4 regular season games left. We're not quite used to this around here, are we?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I mean, first off, bowl eligibility, what is that? And second, having it done before November, before Halloween, you got to give a ton of credit to this team. This is a program that obviously a lot of people nationally criticize quite a bit, and for them to come out here, what was the over/under this year? 5.5.
Yeah.
And now they've exceeded that, and there's still a month left of football. And I know they want more. They talked about wanting more, but this means a lot to the fan base. I think even it means a lot to these players and this team, but it means a ton to this fan base because this is the 3rd time in 17 years they've gone to a bowl, and the last one was during a COVID year, which take it for what it is. But it's only the 2nd time in a real season in 17 years they've gone to a bowl game. This is a big deal.
Speaking of COVID, unfortunately, Peggy is battling that right now, but we heard that Coach Prime called her up in the locker room after the game because they are now bowl eligible, and so best wishes out there to her and Nikhil Webb-Walker as well, that's dealing with cancer right now. So as Coach Prime put perfectly, some things are bigger than football, and so best wishes out there to both of them. And Shadeur Sanders is going to need this bye week. He was being checked out by the medical staff, but he was special tonight. Completed his first 15 passes, finished with 25 completions, and it was one of the big topics in the post-game press conferences. Why is Shadeur Sanders not in the Heisman running right now, or at least not talked about it nationally? And even he said, Travis Hunter is the best player in the country, and if he wins it, I'll feel like I kind of helped him win it because I'm throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I loved his answer because that was the true answer as to why he's not in the conversation. As he said, look, they're not going to put two of us in that conversation. They're just not going to do it. And if it's going to be one of us, he's the best player in the country. And it was a funny answer when he's like, hey, if he wins it, I feel like I won it too because I threw him the ball. So that's really why he's not in it, because. And frankly, this is a bigger discussion, I know, but like with quarterbacks, you've almost got to be a top 5, top 10 team, to be the quarterback that wins the Heisman. And so with already a couple of losses, it's going to be tough for him to get in there anyway. But to his point, Travis Hunter is the best player in college football, and he proved it again tonight. 9 catches, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then on defense, 4 pass breakups tonight, and he was a part of a secondary. It wasn't just him. DJ McKinney had a lot to do with it, Preston Hodge, but Xavier Henderson, Cincinnati's really talented receiver, had 1 catch tonight, and he didn't get it until less than 5 minutes left in the game. That was an impressive performance, not only by Travis, but the entire secondary.
It's clear that Travis Hunter's healthy again because of some of those plays he made, and then even doing a backflip as a celebration. So it's good to see him back out there. Also, just in general, I thought the secondary played a very good football game, especially those cornerbacks. They went at Preston Hodge quite a bit, and he stood up, and there was the one play controversial early on where he got penalized for the PI, but I don't think he did anything wrong on that play. So a fantastic performance by him, and DJ McKinney continues to be really solid in that secondary as well. And they really limited Cincinnati. You just never really felt like Cincinnati got much of a flow going offensively, even though they put a couple drives together. It just wasn't a very consistent offensive effort that really worried you about them coming back and winning this game. They did cut it to 8, but I never really felt like Cincinnati was going to win this football game. Did you?
No, I never really did. It got a little hairy there at the end, and I have no idea why Cincinnati went for 2, by the way. To your point, no, I didn't feel like they were ever really, in contention to win this game. And the one thing about Cincinnati that I was a little bit worried about offensively was they have a really good tight end, Joe Royer, and CU hasn't seen a lot of good tight ends this year. And they got him a little bit on that, but CU did such a good job in the other areas that it wasn't as big of a factor. And this was just a really nice football game for CU once again. And you got to give him credit because this is maybe the best team that Coach Prime is and these best have beat under his tenure. This is a 5-2 Cincinnati team, and up to this point they've beaten teams that are 3-4, things like that. This is a 5-2 team that was right next to them in the standings, and so this was a big win for the Buffs.
Isaiah Augustive, 91 yards, 22 carries from one running back, Brian, and 40 rushing attempts for the team. Yeah, I was telling you after the game, adjusted rush total, they averaged 3.4 on the ground, but the impact of that ground game was much greater than maybe somebody that just picks up the box score and looks at that.
Yeah, Isaiah didn't have any big runs. I remember at one point he was around 75 yards. I think the longest was 9 yards, and I don't know if he had a bigger one than that, but he might have had 100. He was at 95 yards. You and I were talking about this in the press conference, but he was at 95 yards, and that last carry, he slips in the backfield and loses 4. He might have gotten 100, but still, that was the best individual effort since Alex Fontenot 2 years ago at USC had 108 yards. So, we haven't seen something like that under a Coach Prime team. It was great to see it, and he's a guy that most of the year you and I have talked about. We'd love to see him get in that groove. He got in that groove tonight, and he looks pretty good.
Just one sack given up today, and Shadeur kind of took the blame, but then put it on Travis Hunter. He was expecting something to come open there with Travis, and it closed pretty quick on Shadeur. That was really the only mistake that it seemed like Shadeur made early in this football game. He was perfect aside from that. But this O-line continues to rotate guys. We saw, I think, 3 different sets of offensive lines out there with them rotating those guards. And this is back-to-back now that they've done this. So you would think the confidence has really got to be building in that offensive line room.
Yeah, in fact, I asked Shadeur about that, and he goes, were you saying this was supposed to be the bad game? And I said, well, that's been the pattern. He goes, that has been the pattern. Yeah. And he admitted that they talked about that this week, that's been the pattern is they've had a lot of these games where they allow just 1 sack or 2 or none, but then the next week they'll give up 6 or 8. And it's literally every other game until tonight. They got off that pattern, and, no matter what the blame is on Shadeur or Travis, he didn't put it on the offensive line. And so that's only 1 sack really on the offensive line in 2 weeks. And I can't remember last week's. Maybe that was on Shadeur as well. But either way, that line is doing a good job. Not only that, but the run game. 148 yards last week against Arizona. I think it was 125, somewhere around there tonight. And those are good numbers for Colorado. So this is 2 weeks in a row. And fittingly, Khalil Benson and Justin Mayers came to the press conference tonight because those are 2 guys that they're sort of a microcosm of that offensive line. I mean, they've had an up-and-down season, and so is this group. But they came in and played well tonight.
Credit to those, too, because we've seen other guys hit some adversity and they don't stick around. There was 3 guys this past week that are no longer on the roster. So it was great to see them have that moment to be able to come and, get some appreciation for their part in this. Benson was playing pretty well up until that injury that kind of knocked him out for a little bit. And so I don't really like offensive lines rotating, but what they're doing is working for them right now.
Yeah, and they all talked about how it's working. I mean, Shadeur did, and so did the 2 guys, the 2 offensive linemen. And Justin Mayers is a guy that he just lost his starting job at one point, and he talked about when adversity hit, it kind of lit a spark under him and made him kind of fight back for that. And he's done enough that he clearly wants to be in that rotation. And I'll say this: I always like to come down and walk the field before the game, and I was walking along the sidelines during pregame, and I saw Phil Lodeholt and who's the assistant? Coach Gunner, yeah. They were sitting next to each other. We made eye contact. They said hi, so I fist bumped them and chatted with them briefly, and it was nice to chat with them. But I asked them, I said, "How do you feel about tonight?" They're both like, "We feel pretty good about this one." And the offensive line went out and played well, so they felt like they had a good game plan, and it looked good tonight.
When Cincinnati cut it to 8, Alejandro Mata comes in, nails a 47-yarder. He was kind of, I think, frustrated that it just barely made it over. But to Coach Prime's point earlier, it doesn't really matter. We saw last week at Arizona, their kicker looked like he could have made it from 70, but it was wide. Yeah. So, hey, I mean, whatever it takes, I guess, to get those 3 points on the board. But Alejandro was not ready to boast about that kick in the post-game press conference.
No, in fact, it was literally like 2 minutes before he walked in there. He must have been doing it right outside the room. He tweeted that, hey, I apologize. That was low. That's not me. It was early in the year. He was kicking low. He's been in a groove lately, though, and he had to have felt good about it. It didn't come off the foot the way he wanted it to, but I think was it 7 or 8 in a row he's hit since a rough start. So he's doing pretty good. And this is the second week in a row that they've had 34 points. So he's had 2 field goals, and 4 for 4 on extra points. So 2 straight weeks. He was special teams player of the week in the Big 12 on Monday. And so I don't know what the league has done if he'll get it again, but it's pretty good last 7-8 days for Alejandro.
Yeah, I think on the season he's 9 of 11, which is a percentage you're going to take, even though he doesn't give you those 50-plus yard opportunities, but he's been very solid. And Mark Bassett, I mean, all he does is pin teams down around the 10-yard line, right?
Well, and he's overcome some early season shanks. He had a couple in the first couple of games, but he has been rock solid since then. And it's punting is, you don't like to see when a team punts. I actually love watching Mark Bassett punt because I think it's a pretty ball that comes off his foot. And I was watching him a little bit in pregame too, and it just looks nice coming off his foot. And it was kind of fun watching him punt tonight and just knowing it was going to land somewhere around the 10 or 5 yard line, and it did every single time.
Coach Prime doesn't want votes in the polls this week because I think it's easier for them to have this us against the world mentality. And if they get ranked, then, maybe you're fighting a little bit of those pats on the back and all that. You have a vote, Brian. What are you going to do?
They're in there for me, and so I apologize to Coach Prime that they're going to be in there. I knew going into this game because of the way things have mapped out. I rank about 40 teams every week, and then I turn in my top 25. They were number 26 for me this last week, and I kind of had between them and Vandy last week, and Vandy had that win against Alabama, so I gave it to them. But Vandy lost, Navy lost. There were a few teams that lost, and so I knew coming into tonight that if they win this game, they're in. And so I don't know where they're going to be, but they're in.
A couple years ago, we covered a team that went 1-11 and had the worst scoring margin in the FBS ranks. 2 years later, Colorado is 6-2. Coach Prime is certainly getting a lot of people to eat some crow out there.
Yeah, no question. And we mentioned 2020 they went to a bowl game, but this is the best CU team since 2016. There's no question about it. And you can go back even further if you want, but it's the best one since 2016. You and I have not covered many teams as good as this one. And this team, there's a lot of people eating crow because this team, I just see the confidence building. That's the biggest similarity for me between the 2016 team and this one is the confidence. And you can just see with each week when they win, they go out there and they've got a little more confidence and they play well.
And a lot of winnable games left on the slate after this upcoming bye week. We'll be back and we'll start to kind of look ahead to Texas Tech during their bye week.